So I joke it's been a very expensive cup of coffee. I met a friend. We wanted to start something that was a bit different. We wanted to do something that we could feel good, something that we wanted to come to work, something that helped our environment. So we started with the biofuel, and I thought that was a great place to start, was the fact that we had all this used cooking oil that nobody knew how carcinogenic or how bad it was for the human or for animals. And it was sort of as unknown. People just didn't know what happened to the used cooking oil. So when you start investigating and find out more, where's the oil? People didn't know. And then once you started raising awareness to say, well, listen, what's happening to the oil? Where's it going? Who's using it? And then it just grew from there. We saw that there was a niche. All the fuel was being imported from South Africa. And we thought, being young and naive, that there's definitely an opportunity to make local fuel. There was previous biofuel companies that had used first generation, which means they use crop to make their biofuel. We saw that there was an opportunity to use used cooking oil. There'd also be a great way to sort of educate municipalities and the local industry on the dangers of used cooking oil, and we'd be able to sort of safely dispose of that oil and then make a fuel which then could be used as a replacement for diesel. There's a whole lot of different elements on the oil collection or oil disposal. So BE is divided up into sort of three main teams. We've got the one team that goes off and actually goes and fetches all the used cooking oil. They'll start off in the morning, they'll have a list, they'll go off to different places, whether it's the Windhoek or the rest of Namibia, and go and dispose of used cooking oil. They use our cars that run 100% on biodiesel. Obviously reducing carbon emissions. It's been a bit silly to go and fetch all the oil and then obviously pollute on their way there. So they go out daily and fetch from restaurants, from supermarkets, from hotels, and collect their waste cooking oil. We then issue them with a certificate to safely dispose of their used oil. Then the other team will work on production. They will take all that used oil that's been collected, they'll filter it, clean it, test it, and then produce biodiesel. We also have other waste, and then we have another team that will then sit and work on our hygiene products, and they will then be making the different products, which is the hand soap, the hand sanitizer, surface sanitizer, and a multi-purpose cleaner. There's always something different, always something new, and then obviously we're always looking for a new waste that we can use and repurpose. Things that evolved and changed over a couple of years. The economy had changed at the coast, the mining and fishing industry were under strain, and our focus changed. We saw there were different needs in Namibia, and the focus was that most of our feedstock was actually coming from Windhoek and from the north, and most of our clientele were actually based in Windhoek. So from an economic perspective, it didn't make sense to then collect it in Windhoek, move it to Swakop, and then ship the finished product back to Windhoek. It also gave us an opportunity to consolidate and put everybody under one house, which has had a remarkable effect on everybody's morale, on productivity, on business, so we're quite happy with the move. Because we're young and dynamic, we were able to sort of pivot. So the initial, our initial drive was focusing on biofuel. So that was our furnace fuel, so that was boilers, burners, incinerators. Then during COVID, the fuel price plummeted, which then made our biodiesel or biofuel quite expensive in relation to conventional diesel. And we then, with COVID, we saw there's obviously a need for hand sanitizer, so we just upped the production on the ethanol side and then just decreased the production on the biofuel side. We also then took on our other byproducts, which is glycerol, and that's the soap base, which we then use to make our multi-purpose cleaner and our antibacterial hand soap. We get in contact, or business contact us with regards to their waste. So we've then discovered different companies have got different wastes. We then find out how we can repurpose or reuse those wastes, and then that'll also steer us in a direction. So with regards to the ethanol, there was a printing company got hold of us. They had this waste, it was costing them a fortune to dispose of it. We then said we'd take it off your hands, and then we found a use for it. With regards to the beer industry, with COVID and no alcohol sales, they've ended up with lots of stock. So we then got in contact with them. Some of them have contacted us, and we've then started distilling the alcohol out of the waste beer, which we then obviously use for hand sanitizer. We've got 1 or 2 or 3 more projects coming up, but again, it all depends on what waste, and then we find out what uses we could potentially use for that waste or repurpose that waste. We have found that the Namibian economy finds green energy a risk. We've found that a lot of industries have, I think, been burned before by different companies trying to sort of tackle green energy. People know solar, people know wind, people know biomass, but fuel's quite a big unknown. So we had quite a big struggle initially. We're still struggling when it comes to funding for new ideas, if we want to do some new capital investment. We hope in the future there'd be a couple more institutions that are keen to spend and finance and invest in green fuel.